Well, President Trump's fight over ending automatic birthright citizenship is headed to the country's highest court. The Supreme Court announcing it'll hear oral arguments next month on Trump's efforts to enforce his executive order that would end automatic U.S. citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants or foreign residents.
Almost immediately after President Trump signed the order in January, multiple federal judges swiftly blocked it nationwide. But the Trump administration says those judges didn't have the legal authority to do that. Now the justices will decide if lower court judges have the power to issue broad injunctions that block the president's policies.
NBC News analyst Danny Cevallos joins us now with more on this. Danny, good morning to you. So the Trump administration had asked the justices to lift these injunctions and let this work its way from the ones that it received from the lower courts, but they instead decided to hear arguments. How should we look at that decision alone?
Yes, I mean, no matter what, this is a case, birthright citizenship, that will end up finally at the Supreme Court. But it's going to take time. And as you can see, we're not litigating the actual issue of birthright citizenship. We're really litigating a different issue, which is, can these district courts, these lower courts, do they even have the power to issue these nationwide injunctions and prevent the administration from carrying out this executive order? But eventually, sooner or later, we will get to the purely constitutional issue of whether or not birthright citizenship, or jus soli, is the law of the land. Something that almost everybody in the United States thought, well, of course, that's what we're taught in civics class. But according to some, even some academics, that may not be exactly the case.
So on this issue, like setting birthright citizenship, as you mentioned, aside for a moment, just of if the courts were able to do this, what do you think the likelihood is that the Supreme Court rules in the Trump administration's favor? Because this is obviously an important issue for courts and judges.
Yes, and in a way, it feels as though they have to address to some degree the issue of birthright citizenship, because it goes to the issue of whether or not the executive branch has the power to issue executive orders that that cannot be touched, in their view, by injunctions from the district courts. So really the issue to be decided is whether or not district courts have this power to issue nationwide injunctions. And by the way, nationwide injunctions themselves have always been controversial, because our federal district courts are these little geographic areas. Sometimes they're the size of a state, sometimes they're smaller than a state. There's a real question as to whether or not, or to what degree, one sitting judge, say, down the street in the Southern District of New York, can issue an injunction that affects people in Oregon or Hawaii or Alaska. So that's an issue that's always been controversial, and I expect we'll see it addressed here.
So keeping all of that in mind, if the court does side with the Trump administration on this, how will that play out? What will happen next?
Well, the next step will be procedurally, we'll move towards deciding the issue of whether or not birthright citizenship exists for everyone. And this is really the issue. The Trump administration is not seeking to do away with birthright citizenship for everyone, just a category of people, people that the Trump administration says who were born here but not subject to U.S. jurisdiction, whatever that means. And in fact, the entire debate comes down to just those few words. What did the framers mean when they passed the 14th Amendment? What did they mean when they said people born here and subject to jurisdiction thereof? There's a lot of debate about it, and especially because it's something, like I said before, that nobody ever really questioned until about 8-9 years ago.
A lot of implications there for how that plays out. Danny Cevallos, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.